Hello everybody and welcome to a new and hopefully less niche set of videos from the Intrigued Engineer. In this series we're going to be looking at the basics of TIA Portal, and for the OGs out there, that's Step 7 and WinCC. We're going to be slinging code onto a PLC and making every mistake in the book along the way. If you're not overcomplicating every situation and creating dangerous edge case scenarios, can you really call yourself a control systems engineer? So, without further ado, let's jump straight into it. After an install that usually takes in the order of hours, you'll finally open up TIA Portal like an excited kid at Christmas, and you will be greeted with a screen that looks something like this. So this is the screen that we start all our projects from. Before we jump into that though, worth pointing out that if you need to know what software you're running, I'm running version 16, one of the most common ones at the minute, although 17 is out at the moment. You can come in here and you can see what license packs you have, etc, etc, etc. A bit more detailed information on all the stuff that's in there if you need it. Honestly, I haven't seen this before I started recording stuff for this video, so you probably will never need to know this, but it's in here if you need it. So, starting a new project. Very simply, we're going to come in here and we're going to pop in the name of whatever project. So we're going to call it the Intrigued Engineer Basics. And we're going to click Create. What we're going to do, there's two ways of doing this. You can either specify all the hardware, just picking it out of a big old list, or you can auto-detect the hardware that you have. So we're going to do the auto-detect, but I'll take you through how to do the other stuff as well. So once you've done that, you end up at this screen. So we're going to go and configure our device. So now we're here, we're going to come to Add New Device, click on him, and we're going to give the PLC a name. Nice little name, I don't know, something like Colin the PLC. Now you do need to know a little bit about the device you're running, so if it's a 1200 series, 1500 series, also inside of here, if you're looking for it, is the ET200 SP line as well, that's within the 1500 family. We have a 1200, so we're going to go in here. Now if you were specifying it bit by bit, you would find whatever you had, so something like 1214C AC-DC relay, you'd come in here and then find the one with the serial number that corresponded to what you want, pick that out manually, and then you can add all of the module components later. What we're going to do, the pro tip for this, if you come down here to unspecified CPU, we're going to have a look in here, and this is what we have. It's 6E7 blah 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 blah. We know we have something like that with a bunch of stuff attached to it. So we're just going to click that and click Add. And it'll take a few seconds to load this all up. So probably cue some jazz. Okie dokie. So we've loaded the PLC, a blank PLC, and what we're going to do now is auto-detect the hardware that we have. So come down here, click on Detect. Computer's running very slowly today. Okay, so we know we're attached with Ethernet in Siemens terms. Your Ethernet cable is industrial Ethernet, so that's the IE, or Profinet, so that's the PN/IE. So just think of that as your Ethernet cable. And this is going to be quite specific to your hardware. So this is the card that my Ethernet deals with inside of my laptop. So yeah, if that's not selected, there's a few things it could be. So PNIE there, and then choose the bit of your computer that your PLC is plugged into. Do check it's actually plugged in. I've done that before. And we've found a device, which is always a good start. So this is one from one of our previous videos, and it's starting to pull this information now. Now if it's a new PLC, it might not be on this PNIE bit, it will be on, I always forget what it's called, but it doesn't really matter, as long as you can find it. This all goes green and we can detect it. And this is probably where I need to cue a bit more jazz. this could be a good learning point. Why would it not work? Okay, I think I figured this out. So this was a point I was going to make later in the video, but it's reared its head now. It's always good to show it with a real example. So basically I just had some cables mixed up and I was on the wrong subnet that I should have been on. So one of the big things with Siemens stuff is you need to be on the same subnet as what you're trying to talk to. So you can see it, but if you're not on the same subnet, it'll just throw up all sorts of problems. Now you can create IP addresses on the same subnet and do it that way. Siemens will do that automatically for you. Sometimes it doesn't really work. This was one of those times. So I need to pull a cable, so that's kind of avoided itself. So we'll try again. Detect. Please work this time. So same settings as before. We're going to start our search. We've found the device, exactly the same as last time, but this time when we press detect, oh thank God, here we go. Right, we have auto detected everything, so in a second we should get our setup. So this is the same really weird setup that I've had in a couple of other videos with the CB1241 and a CM1241, because I love Modbus so much. So we are in, we've started a new project, we finally got around to auto detecting our PLC. And the first thing you want to do is come into your device configuration. It generally starts at this screen, so you don't really need to go anywhere, but if you're away from it on something else, you can just come here, click device configuration, and if you can't see anything down at the bottom here, just double click on the PLC, and then this guy down here will show up. And we're not going to go through all of these because it's just the intro video, but what we are going to look at, the problem that's just reared its head. First thing we're going to do is have a look at Ethernet addresses. So if you wanted to change your Ethernet address, this is where you can set it. If you wanted to use router, this, that, or the other. Generally, you won't really need to touch that. Just leave it as 192.168.0.1 or whatever it comes as standard, and everything will be happy. And then this is kind of a personal choice, but I always do it. Come to the system and clock memory. It's disabled by default, but I always come in here and enable the use of the system memory byte and the clock memory byte as well. And also, because I can get a bit carried away with myself sometimes, I always like to pop these in a memory range just way outside of anything I'd normally use. So I generally put this as 1000 for the system stuff and 1001 for the clock bytes. And all these do is it just lets you reference these in your code. If I wanted a boolean to be true for the very first scan and then false for the rest of eternity, I could use this memory address, a statement that is always true at this memory address, a statement that is always false, and the same for the clock pulses. These are just different clocks at different hertz that you can look in these particular memory addresses to use. Don't always use them, but just as a standard practice, I like to enable them just so I can call on them whenever I need. It just saves a bit of time. Especially if you're running data logs and things like this, you'll want to come in here and change the time of the day. So this is just a blank slate now, so it's just with all the standards. So you choose your time zone here, and then the settings for your daylight savings time. We're over in Saudi here, so we don't have daylight savings, so I can turn that off and put this to +3. Riyadh, close enough. I'm not in Riyadh, don't dox me. So that is everything we really need to sort for the beginning level in the device configuration. So let's throw this up to the PLC. Now, as this is a brand new build and we have changed stuff hardware wise, like we've enabled the system and clock memory bits down here, we've changed the time, things of that nature, we need to update the hardware and the software as well. So if you just came up here and, well, when these, when you click on the PLC itself, if we just click download to device, that doesn't do everything that we need right now. So we need to come to the PLC here and we need to right click it and then we need to go to download to the device. The first thing we're going to do is, like I say, the hardware configuration. So we're going to pop this up just so it's updated on times and the memory clock bits and all things like that. But if we actually had any changes to the code, that wouldn't be thrown up with this. So same settings as before. If the blank, just change them back to what worked of finding the PLC. Do need to find it again. But once you've found it this time, you won't need to find it again unless you disconnect and have to reconnect. So we can wait until it's properly found it, or we can just click on load while it's still retrieving this device information. It will still work. So we can press on load. As it's the hardware configuration, it shouldn't throw up too many issues for us. It'll just say, are you ready to load? We go load. And it loads. Easy as that. And when we finish all that off. So now we've uploaded the hardware settings to it, but we still need to upload the software settings. Well, changes to software. There isn't anything in there. If we open up program blocks, you can see in our main, it should be completely empty. There we go. Completely empty main OB. But we're going to upload it anyway, just for completeness, so we know everything in there. There's no remnants of old code left over. So we're going to go back to Colin, right click him, download to device, and software all. Now this will probably prompt us to stop the PLC for this as well. There we go. So this confused me the first time I ever saw this, but basically when you have an option and it pops up in red, you just need to come in and find something that won't give you that red option, very simply. So we're going to stop all, and that basically means we're just pressing stop on the PLC while it does its thing. It makes literally zero difference now, but when you're doing this on a live PLC plugged into some very expensive stuff, you need to be very careful about when you do that. Okay, right, so there we go. We've now got a completely blank PLC to do all of our fun playings with. The only thing I will touch on before I end this video is the diagnostics. So if you are getting issues, if the PLC is not throwing up all green lights, something weird is going on, you can come through to this online and diagnostics thing. I'm going to go online here. Now we are online and we can start having a look at any issues that come up with the PLC. So if we have a look at the diagnostics thing, we can have a look in the general, get information about our PLC. You won't be able to access too much of this if you're accessing it over ISO. You will need to be on Profinet, Industrial Ethernet type thing. The diagnostic status, that's kind of all you want to see really, but the buffer is where you get all of this good information. This has been a lifesaver to me a few times, and this just goes back even when I was using the PLC for other videos and for other stuff, so this just goes back and back and back, and just logs everything. And when you do have an error, these ticks over here go into yellow and red angry things. Kind of ask you to look at them and solve the issue. I'm sure we'll get onto a lot more of those once we get onto some of the functions, especially the jump function. If you don't use a jump function properly, that is just mad for destroying your PLC. For other stuff as well, if you wanted to come and have a look at your cycle time, we'll touch on this in other videos, but you can modify your cycle time if you will want to do. Have a look at your memory allocation, if you've got the SD cards involved and what's left on there. Profinet interface if you wanted to reset your IP address, things like that. If you need your MAC address, this, that, the other. All in here, kind of self-explanatory really. And then your functions, assigning new IP addresses from here, updating your firmware, resetting your factory settings, all in there. So that is pretty much it for this basics video. In the next ones, we're going to be actually starting to throw some stuff in the main OB and getting cray with some LAD. So thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next video.